back at it. Alright, so I'm going to pick back up where I left off last week. If you tuned into the video last week, we built out the first page of this report with the idea that we could have some cool custom navigation components, like pop out and navigate this way, and a lot of bookmarking involved with that piece. So for today, I'm probably going to get through building out the rest of this page visually, and then moving on to the page I'm actually really excited about, which is a profile of each player where they can come in and select themselves and be able to see stats from events, that kind of thing. Let's see, make sure I got everything set up how I want to. Okay. So I'm just going to get to building. So I'd established this page to have a few KPIs. I have some good ideas of what I want to do with it. The key piece for this is really this table down here, so, and the map as well is important for event planning to determine like where people are located, to give a good idea of time zones and that kind of thing. But then I had some space that made sense to bring in high-level KPIs, so I'm going to bring in, I think I'm going to do like how many players there are, so card, and then we will grab just the distinct count of player name, just to give some high level information about how many people are active and that kind of thing. I format this up a little bit. I mentioned it last time, but always turn that visual header off unless you want people to interact with it. And then also mentioned last time how much I love using backgrounds for this kind of thing, because you don't have to be as precise. So I can just stick it in there and just arrow it a few times and try to line it up, and it's going to appear lined up even if it's slightly off. It's a little big, so I'm going to change this font a little bit. It's better, but still. Okay, and then I'm going to change my field name. So for cards, you get a lot of choices as to like kind of how to label it. So one of the ways is to turn off the category and use a title that would be on top instead. So you could say like player count right there, put it in the center like that. But in this case, I think I actually prefer it on the bottom, so I'm going to turn that off. But I don't want it to read count of player name. I'd rather customize it. So we can actually rename it in the field well rather than in the field list, and it'll retain its field list name. So if I go active players, something like that. Now it's got active players here, but it retains the player name down on the bottom, which is really cool to be able to do it just at the visual layer. But I can also track back what it actually is, because if you pass this on to somebody else, they might be confused. Like, I don't see active players in my field well. You can search for it and won't find it. But if you hover on it, it'll tell you exactly what field it really is. So I do a lot of that renaming. From there, I know I want 2 more cards. I don't know quite what they are yet, but I know I want 2 more, so I'm just going to copy paste like that. And then I'm going to do, I think, the count of events that we've recorded so far, at least. So I'm going to go, let's see, what can I do that would be a count of events? It's not those. I'm thinking about the data structure underlined. I think what I need to do actually is maybe create a calculated column in this case, because event detail has the same name across the board. So if I go event stats and look at what the table looks like, event detail, this will repeat, but if I were to combine like event detail and whatever this generated, it's not row number that we want. If I do event detail and date and do a distinct count on those, then it would give me the right number, I think. So I'm going to do that. Let's see. Let me come back over here. Okay. Let's do event detail, and then actually I'm going to concatenate. And my date. I should be able to do it, but we'll see. I'm no DAX master, so I end up trial and erroring a lot of this stuff, honestly. So now if I take that field, pull it in here, and then make it a distinct count, should get a decent number. Okay. So 27. And at the beginning when we first started tracking this, I pulled in different types of events, but then we ended up determining that it wasn't valuable to bring in this type. It's valuable to see what people want from it, but it's not valuable to bring in the individual statistics from it because it varies very wildly depending on a bunch of different variables. So I'm going to apply a visual filter to this one so it's only this dynamis type. So we'll go event category, dynamis, okay. And then I'm going to rename this one. This is going to be dynamis count. That'll work. And feel free to ask questions if you have any questions as we go. I can stop and take a look, or even if it's unrelated to this, just general report design, happy to give my input on it. Okay, not quite sure what I want to do with this KPI yet though. It's kind of like it's a space filler, but you don't want to fill it with useless information. You'd want it to be like additional context or something that's valuable, otherwise it's just a distraction. So if I determine that I don't have anything valuable to put there, I'd probably modify it and modify the background, remove that bucket. I think I could find something that'd be kind of cool metric to track, like maybe like total damage, just to see a giant number that kind of tallies up as we go. So I'm going to do that. We'll try it, see how it goes. Total damage. All right. It's interesting. It's not really insightful, but it adds some flavor to it, especially as we go into the event stats pieces. It's more like a vanity metric, which a lot of times the KPIs end up being kind of vanity metrics. Save that real quick. And then over here I want to do like event participation over time. So like attendance, in particular for dynamis again, but attendance over time so we can get an idea of in general how many people will show up. So I do a line graph, put it in the bucket, and then get my date. I don't usually like hierarchies so much in line drafts. And then I'm gonna do we'll do player. We'll do another distinct count on players. There we go. Now we just need to format it a bit. So this theme has a background on it by default, which I'm not a fan of. So first thing first, remove that. Visual header, I don't want anybody to interact with this visual header, so I'm going to turn that off. Expand this a little bit, and then I'm going to kind of bolden those the axis a little bit to make it pop a little bit better. So X. We'll do that one. Just a little bit darker, but nothing too crazy. Size I think is okay. And then I don't really need this label over here because the title is going to take care of the label. So it's just repetitive at this point. So I'm going to go over here and say title off. And then I'll darken that while I'm over here too. Okay, and then maybe do something about the grid lines because they're so faint they're kind of useless, but I don't quite know if I want them yet either, so I'm going to play with that a little bit. I'll try darkening first to see how I like it. Not terrible, but not great. I'm going to stew on that for a minute. And then my title looks massive on this one. I don't know if it really is. Yeah, I want 12 on the titles. Give more room for the graph in this case. And then I want to redo this title to have a different, more descriptive. It's pretty descriptive just because it is what the table or what the chart says, but I think I can do better. I think I can say player attendance. Actually, we're gonna go player dynamis attendance. If I can spell. Did I even spell attendance right there? I don't know. And then I want to also apply that same filter I used here to this one. I got to do it here too, actually. And I don't want to do it to the whole page because I want this piece here to remain. But metrics wise, really we're only looking at dynamis here. So let's go event category there. There we go. So then we get a good idea of how many people we typically would see show up. It helps with planning. Maybe add a trend line to it if we want to get a little fancier, but I'll do average. I don't really like it though. Maybe if I put it behind and try to fade it in a little bit so it's not so in your face. And then take off. I kind of want to get the grid line out of there, but let's see what it looks like without it. So just add a little label to this guy and see what it looks like. See if I can make this fit. There we go. There we go. That's not too bad. So it gives you a good idea of what the average has been, but you can also see that we've been trending up as far as participation is concerned. Okay. So now we got this page filled in pretty good. I can navigate here like that. I have some slight repositioning to do down here. I was playing a little bit after the last stream with just this shape to kind of make that tabbing do what I wanted it to do. and decided to kind of like pull it forward and give a little space between the outline and the buttons so it looks like it's kind of sitting on top. So like that. Just to give it a little bit of like space to it. And then it looks like you push one forward and push the other one back. Okay, I'm gonna save that one. So I think that's good for this tab. I might actually move this title to the left for consistency with the above. I'm sure I'll revisit this tab as I move on. I don't know why that didn't move the first try. There we go. 12. Okay. I think I kind of need a title on here too. Yeah. Because I didn't really say what this is supposed to be, and well, the users would probably know it. It's important to at least be a little bit descriptive here. So I'm going to say this is item once from woman. Give that a 12. Okay, and then the same thing on the other one. Like that. Title on. Okay, there we go. Give it a 12. And we should be good to go there. Okay, I like that. Make sure my visual headers are off on all the stuff that I don't really mess with. I'm going to leave it on for these matrices though. And in this case, I'm going to limit what's available. Primarily because there's going to be a lot of icons that are available in this one because it has drill down, and it's already expanded intentionally, and I don't really want people to mess around with the icons too much. They can use the plus minus if they want to. So I'm going to hide everything except for export because I think export might be valuable in this one. Don't need to pin. Focus mode I'm going to leave on too because that could be good to expand that table out and get a good overview. So leave more options for export. Filter icon can go away because I'm not giving any slicing ability in this case. I'm also going to hide the filter pane from this report with the idea that slicers can kind of drive all of my filtering, and I don't really need people to come in here and see on this visual we don't have filters, this visual we're down to Dynamis, and that actually is a good call out because I need to put Dynamis on this one too, just to keep it consistent. Okay, whoops, spelled that wrong. There we go. Event category there. All right. Just double check all my buttons do what I want them to do, and I can see here I have some layering issues. So I'll go take care of that. View, selection pane, and anytime you have a flyout, you want it to be on top. Like that. So now it's on top and we're good to go. Okay. So now I want to move on to a new tab, the player profile tab. And this one is going to be all about diving into this event stats table and kind of figuring out, like, over time as an individual, as you've made your character better, like, are you stronger in certain areas, or did this new thing that you're trying this week, did it help out or did it actually hurt you, that kind of thing. So I'm going to go back to PowerPoint, and I'm going to build out the background for this thing. I have an idea of what I wanted it to look like. I sketched it out really, really roughly, so you can see this really, really nasty sketch. And that's like the starting point, honestly, is like just getting some type of idea of what the page is going to feel like. And I have a good idea what I want to do, but I need to build that background around it. So I'm going to duplicate, and then I'm going to modify. So I know in this case that I want to retain all of those navigational components, retain the title where it is, but I'm going to need to change it. So I'm going to say player profile like that. And then I'm going to get rid of these KPIs because they're not going to be as important. I'm going to get rid of this box. And I'm going to pull this one kind of down and across like that. And the idea is going to be to have, you pick your player with a slicer up here. We're going to have a cool image. One of the guys in the group is a really good digital artist, and he did some profile pictures that are going to be really cool to make this thing pop a little bit. And so you pick your player, it will render the image right around here, and then you would see like the different jobs or positions the player plays over here. Some sort of like gear wants and needs would be in a bucket over on this side, and then down here would be stats by different types of stats. So we'd navigate across the different stat types right here. Just trying to keep it organized with the amount of content we have. So I'm going to expand this thing a little bit. Like that. And I'm going to put a bucket up here, lined up with the side there. And this might work out, or I might have to come back and revisit it. We'll see. Sometimes I just have to sit back and look at it to see if it, like, from afar, like, seems lined up. It seems like it looks good. Let's see. I'm referring back to my my drawing to see if it does what I want it to do, or will fit what I want it to fit. I think what I'm going to do is actually shrink this down, like that might work. It might look kind of funny. And then I'm going to do another one in between, actually, to meet that need for what I had drawn up. Maybe something like that. So I'll probably come back and revisit this, but this will get us started at least on the build in Power BI. So I do a save as a picture. Profile background 1's good. And then I was messing around with different visual elements to try to figure out kind of how I want, or what they make sure they rendered for stuff based on the model how I expected them to, so I wouldn't get stumbled up on a bunch of modeling stuff that I suck at. But essentially, I'm going to take a new page here. I might bring some of those elements over that were on that previous page, but I want to start with a fresh one. I'll do background 1 there, make it fit, take away the transparency. And then I'm going to start building this thing out. So let's see. I definitely want a filter at the top here by player name. And filtering on, or formatting on filters, there's so many options for it. I like drop downs, especially if you have big data sets. This doesn't matter in this case, but if you do a drop down, the query won't fire until you open the drop down. So you save the render time when you initially open the report. So I'm going to do drop down in this case, and then I'm going to turn off background, of course. Visual headers going off in this case. Slicer header, I'm a little on the fence about if I want to keep it or not in this case. A lot of times I'll turn it off and use a title instead, but it looks like they might have... It used to be that there used to be formatting issues with the header, like you couldn't do exactly what you want to do with it, and that's why I use titles more, but I think they might have fixed it. Like now title text is under slicer header. I think that's new, or newer. So I'm going to leave it for now. And I'm going to say, actually, select a player, or character. Like that. Then I'll increase my size on my items a little bit. I'll probably offset it in the box. I want to make sure I leave a lot of room for the visual because the illustrations are really cool. Okay. And then I'm going to make that white actually look like the gray here. So here, I'll bring Pixie back over into the fold so you can see there. I'll copy that color, go items, background, and give it that color. Like that. And then I need to darken that selection up because that gray doesn't have very good contrast on it. It's a little better. I think that'll do for now. I might reposition it, but we'll see. And then I'm going to bring in an image. I'll filter this thing to Corey first, and then I'm going to go grab this image. This is a custom visual image grid, which I find tends to be pretty good. And then since last week, I actually went and got and mapped out these image URLs because I didn't want to bore the video with that piece. But essentially, I have every player and then the URL to the profile picture, and in the case where they don't have one at this point, then it'll render like a silhouette type image that one of the members drew for us. So if I pull in image URL here, see a really cool image pops up, and then I'm going to format it a little bit. So turn off the background, turn off the title, turn off the header, don't need any of that stuff. And I noticed like the formatting options for the image, it's kind of tough to work with. So if I click the corner and try to drag it, it doesn't really want to drag every time, but sometimes I have to click and then let go. Like right now I'm not clicked, but it'll let me drag it until I click again. It's a little finicky, but overall pretty good. So I'm going to take that, and I want to make sure I give it a lot of room because it's a really cool picture. You know, I think I'm going to make it float instead of having a background around it, because I think it'll look a little bit cooler. So I'm going to come back over here, kill that shape, grab everything else, save as a picture again. There we go. Background there. There we go. Now I can give it more kind of room, and I'll move the slicer up and it won't look out of place because it's not being boxed in. So move that like right there. And give this plenty of room, because I definitely want to show off that piece. Let's see. There we go. So you can come pick a player. So if you pick somebody without a profile, it gives you the silhouette. If you pick somebody with, it'll give you the player. There we go. I'll put it back on Corey for now. Okay, the other thing I want to do is bring in First off, I want to filter this entire page to only the events that are currently tracking. So event category on the page, Dynamis. Let's see. And then I want to do, I know a lot of people hate pie charts, but this one's actually going to work pretty well in this spot. There's not a lot we're trying to communicate with this thing, so like it doesn't have to be, we don't have to be super critical on the pie in this case, because really all we want to see is how often does this person play certain jobs. So if I say job in the legend, and or actually job in the value probably would have done it. Yeah, I'll do job there. Clean this visual up a little bit, and this person happens to only play that one job, which I'm actually going to pull it in the legend as well. Okay, like that. And then I will make it fit, modify these labels to make it make sense. So first off, title goes down, and I'm going to redo the title and say job, like that. There's a couple reasons for this. One of them is to see if there's people that play multiple, like which ones they have available to help with planning. So like this, we can see he has these three different ones that he's played on, which ones he plays most, and then we can, like, as the organizer works through this, they can say like, hey, can you come on this job, because they know he has it available. You can see some of them have a bunch, some of them have one. Coloring's going to get a little funky if it's somebody like that has more than 3 or 4, and that's where pie charts kind of suck. But I think it'll be okay. See, unfiltered, it has a bunch. But this page really shouldn't ever be unfiltered. So I'm going to actually do a single select on it and force it to an individual. Okay. I'm going to say, I'm going to get a little bit more descriptive with the title, so like jobs played. And then I'm going to make my labels a little bit stronger. Okay. Alright, so I got that piece. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with some of the other spots though. I know I want to put gear once over here. And then down here I know it's going to be stats and I know what the categories are, but I'm not quite sure on the visuals quite yet. So I'm going to do gear once first right here as a matrix. Let's see. So I want to do, there's two different types of gear once. There's this Dynamis one, which I think if I put it here would, okay, that works. That's the field I wanted. It essentially brings back the stuff that I selected as things that I want from these different events. So I'm going to actually break this into two. I want to show the Dynamis ones and I want to show the Omen ones. So break that off like that. And then I'm going to format it. I'll probably want to shrink this down here, expand it, give it some space on the side. And just add some separation to it too. And then I'm going to actually go steal my formatting from my event planner page for that. So I'll copy that over. And then I'm going to do format paint up to there. I'll probably play with it a little bit more because it's a different kind of different kind of display we're going for. Let's see, he's got a bunch of stuff in this category, so I'll make sure to allow room for it to scroll like that. See if I can find somebody who has the same need over on that side so I can try it out. Let's see. Nope. And there's going to be a lot of people who don't want anything from here either, which is, it'll just end up rendering blank like that in that case. Let's see who's newer. There we go. There we go. Found a good one. So see how it kind of overlaps there? I want to make sure I allow enough room. So essentially shrink this column header down enough so it doesn't look like it runs off. See, it's massive right now. It doesn't need to be that big. And I'll shrink it back down. Shrink this back down like that. And I'm not liking that line that's showing up there, so I'm going to go to my row header and turn off the outline there. I'll do the same thing on this one because you want to be consistent. Let's see, row header, none. Okay. So go back to one with a picture like that. And then I think rather than trying to add a title up here separate, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rename this to Dynamis Once and Omen Once, something like that. And then I can allow it a little bit more room because it looked like a couple people had some had pretty long lists on a couple of these. So okay, and those appear to be lined up, but I'll just verify by doing a control click on them and going to format and align. I'll just do middle. Okay, perfect. Click around a little bit, make sure it makes sense. Perfect. I'll do alphabetical that way. Okay. I'm also seeing this blank in this list, which is probably bad forms on the back end. So I'm going to get rid of that. I don't want blank to show up in this list. So I'm going to go player name, not blank. So for a long time you couldn't do an individual or visual level filter on a slicer, but luckily that was added so we can take care of that kind of issue. And now that I'm seeing this up here, I kind of want to make this a little bit bigger where it says the name. Because that's like the most important part of this page is the name there. There we go. I think I like that, but it overlaps a little bit, which could get you in trouble because if somebody clicks like right here, they might try to click there and won't be able to get to that because this is that image visual. It's going to overwrite it like that. So if I move this up a little bit, it'll give me some space. Cool. All right, now the fun part is the stats. So I have a few pieces from the other page that I want to replicate. Like my buttons, I want to keep the same formatting I used on the other page. So I'm going to just go steal a button like that. Move it down here like that. And then I'll bring back a button that's like an unselected version of the button and then start renaming these things. I have at least 4 or 5, maybe 6 categories we're going to toggle through here. so it might get a little crowded. I'm gonna have to probably expand it out a little bit more, but we will see. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to start with renaming this one to total damage, like that. And then I definitely want to do melee. And then I'm going to turn off these actions for now because I want to be able to hold control and click them to move them around. So after melee, I want to do WS, which stands for weapon skill. Maybe I'll spell it out actually. Like that. Okay. And what I'm going to do is actually build out all of those menu options first. Kpis, Adam. It's the best. So you're like everybody asks about Kpis or what that is there, and essentially anywhere you hover your mouse, it tells you the color. And in Power BI, we use HTML for the color. So if you do Control-Alt-C, it puts it in the clipboard right away. So then all you have to do is anywhere you go, Control-Alt-C, and then go paste it in, which is great. I've been using it for probably 3 years now. And actually, I end up doing a lot less theming, like colors in the theme, because of that, because it's so easy to just go copy and paste them in. Okay, now I'm going to go ranged, like that. And I know it doesn't look right yet, but I'm going to revisit that white shape underneath there. So this one is going to be job ability. Some of these are kind of rare that like people have to be on particular jobs to actually have stats in them, so they're deprioritized a little bit, but okay. And then the last one is going to be tank. That'll work. Whoop. Okay. So I know I need to extend this thing. If I look at the background that I have, luckily I have a lot of shapes going on in the background, and I can tell kind of where I need to extend it to, which is going to be kind of off of the edge of this piece here. So if I go back to PowerPoint real quick, I can do that like that. And it's losing its form a little bit, and that's because the way it's created is like a blended, it's blending two shapes together essentially. So I'm going to have to actually remake this thing, I think, to give it a good look that's not going to give it that weird slope to the side and then straight edge. So let me think how I want to do that. I think I'm going to end up just completely rebuilding that thing. So start with rectangle, fill it white, get rid of the outline. Like that. And then we go with the rectangle with the curving edges. And then we overlay the two. And this one's also going to be white. Whoops. Hold on. Fill, white, outline. No. And then line them up like that. But I actually have to extend it all the way first this time. And then do the same thing on the bottom one. If I can get to it now. There we go. Like that. And hopefully we get it close on... it's actually pretty close on the first try, which is pretty rare. I need a little less, or a little more margin between there probably. I'm gonna look back and see what I did here. Get rid of that. Yeah, I want a little bit more margin, so I'm gonna squeeze that down like that. And that's looking a little better. Now I don't know if I want to keep it lined up with that, because it kind of looks weird. It'd probably be better if it could cut off in the middle of this. This is all personal preference at this point. I don't know if I like that either. I'm actually, you know what? I'm gonna extend it all the way, and I have an idea for something I could do on the report to actually make that good use. So if I can click that lower one, it's giving me trouble. Let's go there. Expand that to the edge, or close to the edge. We want a little bit of margin like we did on the other side. And then bring that down like that. And then across like that. We need a little more, I think, on the right to left. Or actually we can just, let's do this. Let's do, I always find it like really painful to find the selection pane in PowerPoint. Like you have to be on the shape and then go to shape format to be able to get to it, but it'll be easier with shape. There we go. So we'll take those and we will group them first off. Or actually no, we're not going to group them. We're just going to merge them and union the two. And then we'll move the whole thing to try to make it centered here, which is, that looks good to me. I'm looking at your question, Adam. Why not have the lower one up a level so it's on that? You could have done that, but this is a short-term thing. Like I'm never gonna revisit that now. Hopefully, now that they're unioned. So like you could, I'd have to go selection pane regardless to be able to click the one that was under there anyways. So I think if you did the round one first and then the squared off ones, it would work fine. But in this case, it's like one-off, random. So I'm going to take this back to Power BI and see how it goes. Let's go there, there. Yes, we want to replace it. Go here, page background, turn it off. Bring in the new one. Go fit. I don't know if I love it or hate it. Let's move down a little bit so I can get a better look at it. I think it'll look good once it's filled in and everything's distributed appropriately. Hey, Gaston. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give this a little bit more space. So, because I have more space now. We'll start by separating these guys out a little bit. And I like to, when I have a bunch of buttons in series like this, even if the text isn't the same size, I like to give them the same width. So I'm going to make sure that it's doing that. So general 124 works. And I hate this, absolutely hate this. So I can squeeze a button down to 37, but I can't manually type it to 37 on the general height here. It has to be 40 or higher. So I end up essentially just dragging to make them 37 if they're not, just by using the red lineup. I believe hopefully we'll be able to, I've given the feedback, hopefully we can get that that false error removed, but we'll see. Okay, let's see. Now I'm gonna take these guys. They don't have actions yet, so I can do the control click that I mentioned, and then line them up. So format, align middle, like that. And then I'm actually gonna get some more separation here. So I'll move the right one out, and then, and actually, before I forget, I wanted to make sure they were all 124 on width. And sometimes you can do multiple and then say 124 and it'll do both. Yep, okay, good. Occasionally that doesn't work for me. And now I can move this guy down a little bit more because I'm going to need it. And Gaston, I'm probably just a couple miles from you because I'm in Redmond proper. And now we're going to do a distribute horizontally. And we got pretty close there. I'm happy with how that distributed. It's like lining up right next to each other was exactly what I wanted them to do. By eyeballing it, I'm pretty happy with that. And then I'm going to do align middle again because it looks like these two were off a little bit. Okay, cool. So now we get that hover effect. I don't really like the way it cuts in down below there. And I think, because it looks fine when it's against the gray background here, but once you have the shape over there, it kind of looks whack. So I think what I can do on that to make it look better is give it a little bit of transparency. Maybe a little more. Let's do on hover. Actually, that's the problem. We want 100% on default. On hover, we want like maybe 50. We'll see. It's a little better, but needs to be a little darker because we want it to color match pretty well with this section, but still be able to see that piece through there. It's going to be a little hard. Let's do 40. I don't know. I think that's fair enough. Yeah, it's going to look a lot better than that does. So you can see how you can still see through it, so it feels like it's not really overlaying it. But here it clearly looks like it's overlaying it. So I'm going to apply that format to that one, see how it goes. Yeah, it's better. Okay, cool. And I'll just apply that format across the other ones too. Like that. Stands out a little bit, especially on that one actually. I don't know if I like that. I really don't like that actually. I'm gonna, rather than doing it that way, I'm gonna try to just move these up and narrow them so they don't override so much at the bottom. It's the pickiness that matters in this case. So we'll try to be as precise as we can here, but it's kind of hard. Because the problem here is now we can see the rounded corners off the edge on the lower left and like lower right, and I don't like that either. And like the whole point of overlapping is to try to kind of hide that and make it look like that tab. So you know what? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to back up a little bit. And this might actually impact something I'm doing on the other half of the report too. But rather than filling it, let's back up a couple more steps here. One more. Maybe one more. There we go. Okay. Rather than filling it when you hover, I'm going to make it just change the text color instead. So it gives you the effect of hovering and like that you can click it, but without giving me that weird look that I don't like down there. So I'm going to go default there on hover. We'll go 100% transparent on hover. And then I'll make my on hover icon something that shines a little bit. It's text. I want on hover text. Why didn't it change? There we go. I don't know if I like blue. Purple's a little bit aggressive. That'll work. Okay. So I'm going to do that instead. Just because it didn't give me the effect I wanted, and it was going to end up being a little sloppy at the end of the day. Okay, and then I need to reposition a little bit because I don't want like my my word to overwrite at the bottom there. Like spell, the P kind of falls off into the background. So we'll move those up a little bit. Okay. Okay, and then we'll align them, make sure they're good. Okay. No image. I don't like image. You mean in the button, Adam? Okay. So we have our sections, we have our buttons, but we need to make clicked versions of the buttons and an unclicked version of total damage. So I'm going to do this like this and rename this one to total damage like that. I'm going to just place it right over there. And then I'm going to go in and rename all of these guys in a minute here. Copy all those, paste them like that. I don't know if an image would do it quite how I'd want it to. It might be okay, but it might actually end up being a little sloppy. And on these types of things, if you're not like super precise with them, and it'll end up like showing, like you can really see that little imperfection. It's like you go out to a website, and if you hover on the nav bar and you see something funny about it, and it looks like it's just not professional. And so I'm very careful. Like if it's not going to give it exactly like a clean look, then I won't use it. Okay, so here we go. So now I'm going to take this total damage formatting and apply it to all of these guys. Because these are going to be my selected buttons here. Okay. And then, and I can see this is going to be a little bit of trouble again on the clicked version when it gets on top of these pieces here. But we'll figure something out when we get there. Okay, so I'm going to start renaming stuff to keep it organized. Total damage selected. And then try to keep this selection pane organized. So put those together for a second. This is going to be melee, unselect, melee, select. Put those guys together like that. WS, unselect. Get to see the tedious parts. Select. Range, select, or unselect. I want to be consistent as I can. A lot of times if it's a report just that I'm going to use and maintain and nobody else is going to touch it for this, I wouldn't even mess with any of the renaming, but I want to show good habits instead of bad ones like I usually carry. JA, unselect. JA, select. Move those to be together. I get the ranged one over here too. Let's go. I try to keep them in order because when I go to do the bookmarks, it's going to be a lot easier to switch between them if I put them in a good, consistent order. Spells. Spells selected. Okay, got them all renamed. Now I just need to make sure I position them appropriately. So I'm actually going to move my damage, total damage up and then put them in order like left to right here, because when I go to build the views out, I'm going to build them out kind of left to right, so it'll be easier. So melee, selected, and then unselected. Weapon skill, selected, unselected. Ranged, select, unselect, JA. Let's see. There we go. Right there, and then there. And then, okay. So that's exactly what I want it to be. Now I'm going to roughly position them here. They're not going to be perfect yet. They'll be better soon. And I got to figure out what to do about that overwriting piece so it's not so blatant. I just don't quite know yet. I'll figure something out though. But for now, we're going to get them in position. Okay. Now I'm going to prepare it to do my total damage like section here. So the first piece is going to be to hide the buttons that we don't want to see. So I'm going to hide the unselected total damage, and then I hide the selected on all of the other guys here. Selected, selected, selected. Okay, so that's our setup. Now we're going to build out visuals in this container here. So I'm going to save it real quick so I don't lose all that. And then we're going to go ahead and start building. So the thing I want to make sure to do here is show different metrics over time, with the idea that this person can come in here, filter to themselves, and then see progression, or see if they tried something more experimental or different, how it impacted performance in the event. So I'm going to go, I think I want to do, it's going to be either a line or a bar with time as an axis. There's a couple of different metrics we want to cut here. Total damage is pretty straightforward because we only really have total damage, which is right here. So I'm just going to drag it out here and start playing around with it. So we'll go time, or date, I think is what it was in here. It's my axis. Do pure date. Okay. Let's see here what we got. Filters are good, nothing special to it. I'd like to be able to hover and see what the event was. So I'll probably add a page tooltip to be able to like give this thing more context. So maybe I'll stick this over here, and then I'm gonna bring in that, essentially that vanity metric from our event planner, because it's kind of fun to see. I'm gonna do both of them and copy them, bring them in like this, start filling in a little bit of space, because I think it'd be kind of fun to see like this number grow, and like this gives kind of context for that number. Okay. Still going to play with formatting on that though, I'm not sure if I like it yet. Okay, and then I want to do, so this is total damage. Let's format this thing and make it look a little bit better. Background off. Title on, but I want to make that 12. It's kind of boring right now, so I'm going to see if I can make it a little bit better. So rather than pulling, think here for a second. I'm gonna play with different visual types and see if anything really like pops out. Ribbon would be cool if I had different categories for it that were relevant, but they aren't really, the categories we do have aren't relevant to cut it by, I don't think. So I don't like that one. Let's do, I have an idea. So I'm gonna do two things. I'm gonna do, and this might look terrible, but we'll find out. I'm gonna do just the bar chart like this, and then I'm gonna give it a little bit less vertical space here. And then I'm gonna bring in, I don't know what this is gonna look like, but we'll see. It might look terrible. If I use this chart and bring in the different types of damage, it could be interesting. It might be kind of silly, but let's see. If formatted carefully, it might be alright. There we go. This is gonna be actually interesting. Looking at like proportion of standard hit damage and weapon skill damage is something that can be valuable. We'll bring in ranged in case somebody has ranged as well. JA. And actually, rather than doing that, scrap that idea. We're gonna stack them in this bar chart instead. And I'm not gonna do the ribbon because they'd always stay in the same rank in most cases. But if I do, let's take total damage out of the picture, and then we'll do melee, ranged. We'll bring in this is a tough one because what I'm trying to do on this page are components of these other pages. So like this page for melee would only focus on the melee piece. It wouldn't touch any of the other components, but I feel like it's okay to summarize across the pages on this first one because it's more of like, if you're looking at one spot, this is the spot. If you want to go detailed, you go to these spots. I think. I don't know. We'll see. So I'll just bring them all in and just see what happens. Colors need work. One more. It's very bright green. Let's see. I'm going to change player a little bit just to see what it looks like. So if I go, this one should have a bunch of ranged. Yeah. So you can see this person, for example, almost all of their damage came from weapon skill, just a little bit of range, no melee. Okay. The green's a little aggressive, so I'm going to go steal a different shade of it. Do like that one. There we go. A little better. Maybe a little lighter would be better though. Whoop. Didn't want that. That'll work. For now. I tend to revisit these things a lot as I'm building out. Okay, then we're going to go y-axis and we're going to turn the actual... Yeah, I'm going to turn off the title. I'm going to change the title of the whole graph to be damage over time. Something like that. And then these don't always add up to the actual total. It's partially due to what we have to deal with as far as parse information goes for the game. And the other part is early on we weren't capturing everything, so in order to be able to use some of these pieces and make it effective. I'm actually going to convert this thing to a combo and bring in total damage as a line as well, just to see the missing components of it, because it's still relevant even though we don't have the detail on it. So if I go total damage right there as my line, and then I'm going to clean up that line a little bit here. So let's see, I want to do shapes. I would love to be able to put that shading behind the bar, but you can't control it, which makes me not use it as much as I probably would have. Okay, so in this case you can see there's a big gap in damage, and I think it's because we weren't recording like critical hit damage. It was assumed to be part of the melee, but it's not. I found that out last week. So we're going to start recording it going forward. So I'll play with this a little bit to try to make it kind of look cool. Maybe thin it out a little bit, like that, and then kind of want to color it a little differently. Let's do that. Yeah, I guess tabbing, like the whole idea of matrixing content is amazing. Like if you give the user all of this information at the same time, they're going to get incredibly overwhelmed and confused, and your performance is going to suck because you're trying to render so much stuff at the same time. And then if you place it tabbing like in the bottom of a report, it's not really linear. And like when you're tabbing through a report as a user who's never experienced it before, a lot of times you're just going to go page 1, page 2, page 3 and move around that way. But if you were to matrix it, so in this case, once I bring it in, you pop out the topic, and then when you get to the topic, you navigate in the topic rather than jumping from page 2 to page 12. Can clean up that experience quite a bit. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to hit save real quick because I'm liking where this one's going so far. I'm going to adjust the legend to make it read a little bit easier. Let's go legend. I'll darken that. And then I'm going to turn off the default icon. I think I wanted to see it. Oh, there we go. I want to see the line with the marker for the total damage like that, which is specific to combo chart, I think. And then it looks like my X and Y need a little bit of love. They're hard to read. Let's go X. Darken that up. Maybe a little bit bigger. Yeah, that'll work. And then I'll do the same thing on Y. Darken it up with that. A little bigger. Okay. So I like this. I think that's going to be good for total. Now the important part, and I think I'll probably get through total and maybe melee today, and then I'm going to be done for a little while. But the important part here is being able to navigate across the groups, and like kind of the process for building these I think is pretty valuable. Essentially what I want to do now is take these objects, so these 3 objects that are part of my total damage, and group them together like that. And now we can hide the group. And all we have to do from this point is swap out our selected unselected buttons and then build out our next view. It takes something that used to be really complex, because we would have to go through and manually hide each one, and makes it so we only have to hide the group. So you can pop the group in and out. So when it comes time to do bookmarks, it's only a bookmark for one object rather than for a bunch of individual elements. And it also makes updating and maintaining those bookmarks a lot easier. So I'm going to rename that group as my total damage, like that. And then I'm going to build out my view for melee. Melee's a little bit more detailed because we have things like accuracy and like how many hits and the average damage as well as the total damage on it, which is actually, as a player, really important to kind of monitor the accuracy over time when you try out different builds and that kind of thing. So I'm gonna go, let's see, what do we want to do? I'm gonna pull some cards. I'm actually gonna go over to my total damage to copy them so I can keep my formatting, make it nice and consistent. Hide that guy again. And I want to do like, I think I'm gonna do average on accuracy and average on hit count and maybe another average. So you can see the averages and then the overtime for the same information. It's going to look similar, but a little bit different than we have on the other. So let's see. I'm just going to take this one and convert it over to my, let's do melee total damage like that. And actually, no, I don't want total. I want to do average damage. But then I want to make sure that's an average also. So it's like how much damage per hit, essentially. I'll probably play with the labeling a little bit, but I want to get my cards established first. So we got hit count, we'll do hit rate, and then again we'll do percentage or average on that one. So you can see average, our percentage, our accuracy average is 90.77, which is not so good. But if we take this and move it into a chart over time, we can see progression, which is what I want to see. And then I want to bring in, what do I want to bring in next? I want to bring in the count. So I'm going to copy that card and bring in my hit count. So this is like how many hits. And if I do average on that one, it's the same situation. So this is saying on average he hits 973 times in the event, and the average happens to be very similar. Its average damage is 989 and accuracy of that. Now if I go over to somebody else, their numbers might vary wildly depending on what job they are. Like Corey here will have really high accuracy but much lower damage and a lot more hits. This person will have blank because they only do ranged attacks, and that we'll get to that over on this tab. So I'll probably play around with the idea of if a player only has ranged, for example, that rather than rendering blank, maybe we have something that lets them know, like, hey, go to ranged. I don't know. I'll have to play with that idea. Let's see. Let's go back to one that we recognize. And I'm going to build out, there's one more KPI I kind of want to look at here, which is crit rate. It's like critical hit rate. It's not deserving of its own section, but it's one of the ones we like to monitor. So I'm going to copy this one and go to do crit rate. If I can see it, there it is. Do average on that one too. And then I'm going to like 4-box this thing essentially. So give it like a squared off look and feel. And then I'm going to redo these labels so I can squeeze them down a little bit more too because they're too big. I want to do like that size. Something like that. And I might even go, I might even add a shape or some type of shadow, a drop shadow on these in particular to make them pop a little bit better. Okay, so let's go here. We want to do like average damage per hit. This one is average hits. I don't know if hits is the right word in this case, but I'll do it. Accuracy and then critical hit rate, like that. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna check out drop shadow just to see what it looks like. I want it to kind of pop out a little bit, but I can't do really anything with the background at this point because it's the background for all of these components, and like the total damage only has 2 buckets rather than 4. So I want to do it in the report on the canvas rather than in the background. And if I do it well, it'll look pretty good, but we'll see. Let's do shadow, 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 and shadow. And then I need to resize to make them all exactly the same size. And the shadow is going to actually be important and make it a little bit more difficult to line up really well and make it kind of feel the same. Let's see what we had for general here. 149. Let's do it manually here. Okay. I like it, but I think I need to actually add like make it match this color so it sits on top rather than looking like it's transparent still. So I'm gonna give it a background and I'm gonna color it with this color. So I'm gonna use Kpis on that. There we go. So you can see it sits on top of it now. So format paint that guy across if I can click correctly. Like that, like that. Okay. So I like where that's going. Let's see. Okay. Now I'm going to build out a visual here that represents some of this information, but over time. So let's go. Maybe I'll do. I don't want to make it too complicated. I want to see accuracy over time for sure. The damage per hit's not as important. I don't feel the accuracy is really important, and the critical hit rate's fairly important. So maybe I'll do a line with 2 lines on it to show those two. And since they're both percentage, it'll fit with the range and give good separation as well. So we'll try it out and see how it looks, and then go from there. So we'll go date as the axis, and then I will pull in. Let's see. We want melee, melee, melee hit rate as a value, and I want critical rate as another value. Yeah, I think that's gonna work. Now I'm gonna format it and see how I like it after I format it a little bit. Change my title again back to 12. I probably should have just done that in the theme so I didn't have to keep doing that, but that's okay. Go accuracy and critical hit rate. Okay. Now I'm going to color these fonts, or the axes, make it a 10 like I did on the other chart. Turn the title off because we already display what it is right in the legend, so we don't need to repeat it. Grid lines I'm going to take off. And then let's see, what else do we want to do on an x-axis? As the same color and size. And then I don't need the label of date because it's pretty clear that it's date already, so it's just wasted space. So we'll go x-axis and turn off that title. Okay, and that gives us more room to play too. So I like that so far. We can hover and see on the tooltip what the actual numbers are. I might add maybe some markers to it, or maybe I'll actually I might get fancy with it and try to conditionally format a little bit. So if you're under a certain number on like melee hit rate, it stands out pretty good. Let me see what we got to work with, and then I'll see if that's a good option here. So shapes, I'm going to show marker for now. Don't want to do stepped. I like to play with these different settings to see if one of them makes sense and pops, even if I don't think so going into it. Okay, I'm going to try something. This might seem silly and I might misstep it, but if I remember correctly, if I convert this to a bar, maybe it has to be side-by-side bar. No. Is it combo? There's one of these that if you take the right steps, you can conditionally format, and then it'll retain on the dots, but I'm not seeing it, so maybe we adjusted it. Yeah, it's okay. I'll go back to here. And then I'm going to change my color on the lower one because it's kind of hard to read. Something like that. Okay, and then I'm going to darken up my legend text a little bit like this. And then I think all I'm going to do now is, I think this is good. I want to float it to some of the people and make sure they get value out of it. But I'm going to group these and hide them, and then I'd move on to the next one, but I think I'm going to call it a day as far as streaming goes for today. So let me grab these elements, give it a right click and group. Now we can hide the whole thing and move on to the next one. So let me rename that real quick. Melee. Okay, cool. So I'm going to save that real quick before I do anything else. So hopefully that was valuable. I'll probably pick it up later this week and continue on down that same pattern of build out a tab, hide it, or group it, hide it, move to the next tab. So it'll be a little bit repetitive as we work through those pieces, and I don't know if I'll stream the whole thing just because it is so repetitive. But I will likely be back on this project shortly, and hopefully you enjoyed it and got some value out of it. So thank you very much, and take care.